With local government elections fast approaching, political killings are likely to escalate. Over the years, police officers have managed to make few breakthroughs in previous cases. So are there creative ways to deal with this issue? To help us unpack this complex subject, political analyst Oscar van Heerden joins me now from Johannesburg. Oscar, good evening and thank you very much for your time. In the last couple of weeks, we have seen quite a number of incidents that we can point to. A official of Ekurhuleni shot 28 times just last week in Lephalale. There we saw violence and some guns being wielded in a branch meeting of the African National Congress. Why have our politics become a form of war?
Well, good evening, Taba, and good evening to your to the viewers. Yes, that is exactly the question that I'm asking. What is it that has made us to now become the political killing fields that we see unfolding? Of course, everyone knows that historically we come from a very violent past. Politically, there was always upheaval, killings, and so forth. We know, for example, it is particularly prevalent in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, where there was, it was the epicenter in the mid-90s around so-called black-on-black violence. Of course, we knew that there were third force and apartheid elements fueling that particular conflict. But what it has then meant is that a number of people in KwaZulu-Natal and in some of the other provinces, but particularly in KZN, have come to appreciate and is accustomed to intimidating violence and killing in order to get their way politically. And with the, as you say, with the upcoming local government elections, I make the point in my article, Tabo, that, because we have such a high level of unemployment, poverty and inequality, that job of a councillor in your local constituency or local ward is paramount. It is everything. And unfortunately, people are prepared to kill for it.
Yeah. Is there something that's happening in the organizations that's allowing this to continue happening? In other words, are the various political organizations, because one would say, yeah, it's happening in the ANC, but we have seen reports, for example, in the other organizations as well, political organizations, that is where political killings does take place. Is there something that is happening within these political organizations that allows this practice to take root?
Well, it would be a strong gesture to say it allows it, but we could perhaps answer it in an indirect way by saying that the fact that ANC, IFP, EFF and others are not actually having controls and mechanisms to deal decisively with this kind of behavior, that in a way suggests that it is being allowed. I make the point, for example, that we need to come up with much more creative ways of curbing this particular phenomenon. For example, if in a particular ward there is a particular killing or killings that have happened, then I argue that that ward must be disqualified from putting up any representatives, because at the moment you kill or you hire bandits and individuals to do the killing for you, and you still assent. And I'm saying that if there's any indication of complicity or involvement from yourself and so forth, then the particular political party should take action decisively. Otherwise, they are allowing it to continue.
Yeah. Then the other question you ask, of course, is can we stop it? I mean, you cite, for example, what has happened in the ANC over the years in its ability to deal with tribalism, for example. Have they successfully dealt with that?
Well, tribalism, one could argue, if you look at the history of the ANC, one could argue that that had been dealt with in a very effective way, and for the longest time over the 109 years. Of course, we all know the ANC started out as a very narrow nationalist, African nationalist organization, but over time it came to appreciate that there is a black majority, so-called coloreds and Indians are also part of the oppressed, and slowly but surely accepted that as the norm and began to embrace that. Umkhonto weSizwe, the armed wing, in fact, many people don't know, was one of the first constitutional structures of the ANC to be completely non-racial and to really spearhead and show the mother body that indeed we need to begin to treat everyone equally within the organization. And so tribalism was really dealt with, and I say it has been dealt with in the way that if we look at other African countries and how tribalism has really ravaged those countries, whether it's the Rwanda genocide or the conflicts in Sudan between North and South, etc., we actually have managed to avert that kind of overt tribal issue. But the one element that I warn is that we've not necessarily at this point learned sufficient lessons about political killings and assassinations, which is also very prevalent post-colonial on the continent. And I think that there is much to learn from other countries as South Africa.
What's the impact on our democracy if this undesirable phenomenon that we are seeing in politics continues?
No, it's absolutely huge. You know, we have various civil society organizations, rightfully so, who are campaigning actively to protect the Constitution of the Republic, the Bill of Rights, to defend democracy. There's the group Defend Democracy, and these are all very, very good initiatives from civil society. However, we need equal passion and active citizenry around political killings and political assassinations, because if we do not actually put a stop to it, if we don't think creatively and out of the box about how we are going to actually curb or stop this kind of thing, then it is a big, big threat to the very democracy that we are defending.
Yeah. And I mean, we are seeing, for example, statements coming from the various parties. For example, the Lephalale matter, ANC issuing a statement saying we condemn the violence, we condemn the guns, we condemn all sorts of political unrest and machinations that are going on there. Is that enough?
It's not enough. Unfortunately, it's not enough. And I make the point because I knew that was going to be the so-called answer to this problem, where people pronounce, they reject, they distance themselves. It's not good enough. No. What we want is for Parliament to actually start thinking creatively about a set of laws that looks at electoral reform that is going to say, in my opinion, that if indeed you are suspected or there's allegations or at least some proof that points to the fact that you've been engaged in killing your opponents and or asking others to do so, then not you as an individual only, but the ward needs to be disciplined. Because I think that if you begin to send out a message to the people that we cannot have councillors or representatives at provincial or national level, for that matter, to be engaged or have allegations of being engaged in these kinds of activities where life is cheap, to advance yourself politically, then you are not going to be able to participate in the democratic project. I know it's a little bit harsh. Obviously, we would have to think about the modalities of that, but I think it's a good starting point to say you are excluded. Political analyst Oscar van Heerden, appreciate your time tonight on In Focus, and thank you for joining us.